So, raw content, we are the biggest content platform in Brazil. We are expanding to Mexico now and Colombia. We grew a lot in the last 4 years, went into 0 to 1,000 customers. We are a SaaS-based platform. Right now, we are around $10 million ARR, and we are looking to grow to $20 million ARR by the end of this year. We are growing between 2 and 3x each year since the founding of the company. This actually was the day we started raw content. You can see me in the middle with a lot of less facial hair. And you can see that I am really scared by the way I am in the picture. I was really scared about starting a company back then. It was like this, what I got myself into. And a little bit, 3 years later, this is us now. This is our team in our hometown. So we went from 3 to 230 people, and we are hoping to hire more 100 people this year. So it's a lot of growth since we started the company, and I'm going to tell a little bit about this story, how it happens, what you learn, and how you can apply this in your own startup. So one of the reasons we are able to go from this to this so fast, first one was this guy. He's actually a Slovenian guy. This is why I'm here. He is our board member and my personal mentor. It's strange that he was a mentor for a program in New York, and I happened to meet him, and he helped me a lot in growing raw content, and he's helping us until this day. There are a lot of experienced entrepreneurs in startup in Brazil, and he helped a lot paving the way for us to grow, and it's helping us until this day. The second reason why I created raw content and helped us to grow a lot, besides Bojan, he's the CEO of Zemanta, company from Slovenia, was this guy here, Batman. When I was a kid, when I was like 7 years old, there's always that thing when your teacher asks you, what you gonna go when you grow up? And in my school, I told her that I want to be a writer and a scientist and an entrepreneur. I didn't know exactly what an entrepreneur were back then, but I knew that Batman had a company, and so if I wanted to become Batman, I would need to found a company as well. So I thought that if you study like to be a doctor, you become a doctor, and if you found a company, you became Batman somehow. So this is why I started the company back then. And this phrase was a phrase that my grandfather used to tell me a lot back then when I was a kid. It's from Theodore Roosevelt. So it happens that the first time I saw a computer, I was already 13 years old because I came from one of the poorest regions in Brazil. It happens to be one of the most poor regions in the globe. Brazil, it's really an unequal country depending on where you go to. And I saw a computer the first time. I was 13 years old. I was passionate about it. I wanted to learn how to program it. And sadly, the only school that teaches programming in my hometown costed like 200 euros a month. And the income of my whole family per month was like 90 euros, like almost like half of what was cost to study programming. And then I discovered that we had a university that with like an engineering course, and I went there, grabbed all the books on programming, and was going home. The people at the library told that I was stealing all the books and started chasing me down the university, and I was not able to study the books, take the books home, or be more than a couple of hours in the library. And this phrase is important in entrepreneurship because people tend to complain a lot, like, we are in Brazil, we don't have VCs here, or the market is not that good, I could be in the West, I could be wherever, I could have X, Y, and Z. And in the end, it doesn't matter what you have, who you are. What matters is what you can do, what you have, wherever you are. It's the only thing that you can do. So back then, I went by foot to study and back in the library, and I thought to myself, what I have, what I can do with what I have. So I had a couple of sheets of paper and a pencil, and for 63 days, every day I went to the library and copied the whole programming book by hand, and learning the algorithms by copying it by hand and doing the exercises. So the next time I went to I saw a computer again in front of me. I was able to program it without, because I was copying everything. So even though, and a lot of times in your career as entrepreneurs, you think that things are hard, in the end, it doesn't matter a lot. What it matters is what you can do. It's only what you control, and most of the times you can do far way more than what you are expecting to be able to. In the last 20 years, we see, 200 years, we see a completely different shape on the world. For most part of human history, most people are really, really poor in all over the globe. By the time these lovely castles you guys have here, we don't have castles in Brazil, so by the time these were being constructed, most people in the globe was really, 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 really poor. Almost everybody, in all countries in the world, everybody was really poor. And then this happened. You can see here in green are the ones that is not in poverty line, and red is the population that it's. And you can see how it scaled and grew in the last 200 years, and how today you have less people that are poor than poor people in the world. And this is kind of a crazy reality that we live today, because for the most part of history of humankind, poverty was like, it's like you have like a hurricane, a flood, and poverty. It was just part of life. It's just a cost of doing business. It was part of the human condition for most part of the human history, and this is not true anymore. So when I was in high school, I wanted to study philosophy and history, and thinking about it, and of course I wanted to change the world, like any teenagers tend to think they can. And I thought that the way to change the world, more than anything else, was technology made this happen most of the time. Economic growth and technology changed a lot of people's lives, and it's still changing today. So I decided to be part of it and went to study computer engineering and biology. I took the two universities at the same time. I studied like at night biology and in the mornings engineering. So in the last 20 years, we took 1 billion people out of poverty, and we should try to do it again. And this is not going to happen by itself. There are a lot of work pulling up 1 billion people out of poverty. And the way I think we can do this the fastest and the bestest way is with entrepreneurship, where real wealth can be created. You can't really change things just handing money to people. You need to create more wealth. And to create more wealth, you need to create new companies. This is why me and these 5 guys, each one of us founded one company. We did this project called the One Employment Project, where we take our own money enough to be 6 months without working. And each one of us founded a company. Now, each one of us, the 5 of us, each one had at least 200 people in their companies, and combined we make like $200 billion in give or take 4 years later. So this kind of stuff end up having a huge impact in any society, because startups grow so fast and generate so many jobs that it starts changing the economic of any place. Like we together, we have like 1,300 employees. That didn't happen like 4 years ago in my hometown. And we founded the local startup scene, which now happens to be the biggest one in Brazil. We have 1,500 startups now only in that town, and a lot of them are growing fast. We are just the first of a wave of a lot of entrepreneurs growing there. And when we founded the company and created originally, we were SEO tool. My original idea was I bought, I don't remember that number, I think it was like 10 billion or 15 billion keywords from some Russian guys, a data set, and then I created a robot that went to Google, with each keyword and took the first page result and tried to figure it out why those guys were ranking first on Google, and took my customer's website and compared the two so that he could suggest what about to write. So it was a neural network to try to reverse engineering Google. I thought that I would be able to do that. And we had a lot of press back then. We won a prize of the best startup in Brazil, best startup in Latin America. But here's the problem. If the press could be able to know which startup is going to be successful or not, they would not be in the press business. They would be investing. So the things that we read in TechCrunch, in a lot of magazines, in a lot of places, is not always true. Doesn't matter. They can't tell if you are going to be successful or not. No one can tell, actually. So, and a lot of times you keep so focused on the press and be seen to the press that you don't really create success in your company. Actually, the idea was not that good, and the company was a bad company. We are not able to sell one single license of that software, and we managed to win all the prizes and be in all the magazines and all the stuff. So from that, I learned that press is important, but in the startup community, this is all over the world, we care too much about appearing successful and sometimes not enough of being truly successful with our businesses. The second lesson from this time was that I was really passionate about the technology part, the machine learning algorithms, the deep learning, and all this stuff. And I thought that it was enough for people to buy from me. It seems kind of stupid looking back then, but a lot of people who come to an engineering background they tend to think they are smarter than other people just because they can code, which is not true. And just because you can create some tech or some algorithm, nobody cares. The truth is that nobody cares that you can do this shit. People care about what value you deliver to them. People in companies and people care about what your software do more than how it's made. There's some exceptions on that. If you are selling directly to devs, maybe there's a change. But for most part, it doesn't matter how big your tech stack is or how cool it is. Just for you, your friends in the end, not the public in general. And then we decided to change the company back then because this software was not going well. And then as a good software engineering, it was not going well. We thought about creating our own website to take the keywords that the machine was suggesting to prove that the algorithm works so that we would sell eventually the software. It was a really bad plan though. And we created this site. It went through 0 to 600,000 visits in Brazil in 3 months using the recommendation of the machine. And my co-founder was writing all the text, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And as a good software engineer, he created another software to have freelance writers to use the recommendations of the algorithm to prove that the algorithm works so that we would be able to sell it. So of course, it didn't work. And then we seated all of us together and decided, hey, we are doing too much stuff. We need to focus in one single vertical. And here's the new rule from now on. I will not write one single line of code until we get to 100 customers. I'm going to do everything myself by hand. And when we get to 100 customers, we either going to go back to our jobs if we fail, and if we succeed, now we're going to start writing code. We're going to do in the reverse. What's really painful for me, because I like to code a lot. This is what I learned back then. Are you really willing to do all the stuff that's needed to a company be successful? Most people are not. Like, the idea is more interesting than the real making of the company. It's like those people who like the idea of being a writer, but then don't like to write. So it's cool to think about that you're going to publish a book, but doing it's completely different experience. So in the beginning, I was writing all the texts from raw content, reviewing all the articles, talking with all the customers, and I managed the company with just Google Docs and spreadsheets until we got to 100 customers, and this make a big difference for us because since the beginning we started like a company focused on the customer more than anything else. And we did it in 5 months. We got to 100 customers. Our goal was 6 months, and we start growing like 3x each year and growing a lot. And people tend to tell in startup that growth solve all problems. I don't believe that because there's a lot of different types of growth. There's sustainable growth. There's not sustainable growth. Our growth in the beginning was not that sustainable. Because we didn't care a lot about the success our customers were making with our content. So we are selling a lot, and then our customers starting to churn. And we didn't know what churn was back then, but they started to churn. And then we developed our own success milestones to help our customers be more successful. And if you don't know what it takes for your customer to be successful, they will not be by themselves. It never happens, at least in SaaS, where it's the segment that we work. You need to beforehand know what a successful customers look like and go in reverse and create each step for them to be successful. And this was really important for us back then to grow. So this is a phrase in Portuguese. It's hard to translate in English. It's like, o mais difícil é aprender a ler, o resto está escrito. We used to say that, and I tell that a lot to my team, that in startups we tend to think that we need to reinvent everything. Like we need to reinvent HR and finance and whatever. You don't need to reinvent anything. There's a lot of those problems are already solved, and you don't need to just create the new way of creating a new model of a company and at the same time creating a new product in a new market. It's just too hard. You're trying to do 2 things really hard at the same time. So we get like 20 people back then, and we don't had any real CEO at the company. And my founder seated with me and said, Ed, we think it's going to be you, the CEO of the company. I have a background in engineering. I didn't know anything about management. A team was already growing. And then I thought, let's go read some stuff. And then I decided to read 100 books a year on management and entrepreneurship. And the first thing that I learned reading my first 100 books in leadership, it's that leadership books are mostly full of bullshit. Was a waste of time reading all those books about leadership. Most of them don't tell anything about anything. They're just self-help books to entrepreneurs. Like a guy goes to a mountain and then he writes a book. He win a race and writes a book on leadership. Everybody writes a lot of stuff. And the sad part is that most management books are full of bullshit as well. And they didn't help me a lot understanding what it really takes to create a company with a strong culture. But this kind of happened. I was there like yesterday on this beautiful painting you guys have here. It's about death, but in a sense, there is really good that we are all the same in the end. Everybody's gonna die. And what it has to do with leadership, people are more similar to you than you think they are. And if you understand that they are just like you, then it starts to be really easy to communicate with them and start to being really easy to manage them. So what I learned from those books mostly was not that useful because they are all based on the premise that you need to do a lot of different stuff for each people. And in the end, we are like 99% the same, and we just care about the 1% that we are different, but we are really, really alike. Humans are really, really similar to each other. And this helped me grow the company. And how does it help me to grow the company was that at some point you need to start firing people. And Brazilians are really bad in delivering bad news. We are kind of happy people that like to party. So no one likes to fire people anyway. And then it drags along a lot of time to firing. And then I learned that you're not doing any favors to not firing someone bad in your team. It's bad for them and it's bad for you. actually, if you don't give negative feedback to people, you're not being nice. You are being a coward, actually. You care so little about that person that you don't even have the guts to go and tell that they are screwing up. This is where most managers fail and most leaders fail, because they think they are good people, they think they care, but in the end they don't fucking care. They care so little that they don't want to bother to have difficult conversations with the people they manage. And when we start firing people, and we need to start a lot of them, we discovered that the problem was that we don't have a clear culture in the company. And then I started studying about culture in companies, and as leadership is a thing that doesn't feel like it means a lot of stuff. A lot of people, it's kind of a religion in Silicon Valley talking about culture, and I was really pissed off because there was no really way to create a culture in your company. And the framework we came up at Rock is just focus on the verbs. What actions people actually need to do to be part of the culture or not. It's not about what we think people are or what we expect from people, it's what they do. And then we create like 3 simple verbs: learn, teach, solve. And if you are learning, you are teaching, you are solving, you are raw content. And then all the manager asks these questions in the interview process and in the one-on-ones. And this is how we maintain the culture, because it's either you are learning or you are not. Either you are teaching someone something or you are not. Either you are solving problems or you are not. And this helping us a lot of scale the talent at Rock. So this phrase comes from my favorite book, which I read every single year. It's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. For the 300 books I read now on management since I started the company, this one is actually the most helpful, because he was a big emperor, and you think that his life was that different from us, and the book is actually his journal. It was not supposed to be published. And when you are reading it, you think that he's kind of like the same of us. The same problems we face as entrepreneurs, the same problems we face as human beings, he had the same exactly problems. So people are the same. Don't treat them necessarily different. This is going to make you a better manager, a better founder, and it's going to help you create an awesome company. Thanks.
Don't run away yet. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, the last one. Don't run away. Stay. Wait.
Okay.
We still have 2 or 3 more questions from Slido, which we need to answer.
Okay.
So, how close do you think are you to becoming Batman, whatever that means? Oh my goodness. What do you think?
I think I'm far away yet. I need to lift a lot of weight, so I'm kind of skinny.
But you're on your way, okay.
Yeah,
so you're kind of digging the cave, fair enough. For a startup in the startup phase, is it better to find the funding or go to the market?
I am biased on always go to the market first. If you can go to the market, why are you gonna waste time fundraising? It's a drag of time, and in the end, fundraising, VC money is the more expensive money that you can have, because they take a part of your company. You do that because you don't have other options. That's how it started, actually, the VC industry. They could not borrow money because they were too risky. They created the VC companies back on that, actually. So you can go to market and sell a lot, do that.
Cheers. Thank you. And now we have, is fast scaling always the best way? Always. Fast scaling.
I don't think so. I don't think so. There's, like, at least in SaaS, we have some examples, like the guys from Atlassian. I think they IPO'd this year or last year. They took far way more time to IPO than other SaaS companies, but they didn't actually raise it a lot of money. They start bootstrapping, and the guys are pretty happy. If you can bootstrap a company and then do an IPO, you will be really happy. It doesn't matter, it took like 3 or 4 extra years for that.
Because equity does not grow on trees, right?
Yes. Yes.
Marvelous. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.